and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 10th annual Fairview Pharma Symposium. It's pretty exciting to get to say the 10th annual. I think when we originally started this event, and some of you were probably in the room when we originally started the event, we had a handful of people in a conference room at our corporate headquarters, and I think we wondered, will anyone be interested in this? Will anyone come to the event? Well, now I look at this room, and 10 years on, and I think we were onto something. I think this was a valuable event to have. So I wanted to start off just quickly, show of hands for who is this their first pharma symposium? Okay, quite a few. Who in the room has been to, maybe not all 10, but the majority, 9 or 10 of the events that we've had? All right, so quite a few. Well, and so I know one person who's in the room that has been to all of them is somebody who I think we need to recognize this morning. It's somebody who, without his vision and without his leadership, none of us would be here today. So some of you may know that Tom Blissenbach, who was really the creator and the originator of this idea, retired from Fairview earlier this year. And so Tom, I apologize looking into the lights, I can't see where you're at in the room, but if you wouldn't mind standing up. So I'd just like to thank Tom for, not only for this event, but for, an amazing pharmacy career. He is truly an innovator in our industry and has done so much, and so many of us in the room have learned so much from him. So I just wanted to thank Tom. Quickly, I also wanted to just do a quick thank you to some of the people who are kind of behind the scenes, some of those people who, without them, this event could never happen, and don't always necessarily get all the recognition I think that they deserve. So again, if you could just stand up or kind of throw your arm in the air if you're in the room right now. But Joetta Andres, Alyssa Belisle, Colleen Boyce, who is helping make sure all of this works, Jenny Cornier, Alex Hansen, and then from our partner at Accelera, Amy Swanson. Really did just a lot of work to make this event happen, from the logistics to making sure the speakers are ready to go to everything that you've already experienced this morning. So thank you to all of them as well. And then lastly, I mentioned Tom. I want to thank Tim Affeldt, who's our Director of Specialty and Infusion Pharmacy at Fairview Pharmacy Services. Tim really stepped up this year and took on the leadership role for the symposium. So again, a number of you who probably worked on proposals or getting invites to this worked with Tim. So I also want to thank Tim for his leadership this year. All right, so for me to just start off, lots of changes, lots of news at Fairview. And I'm going to cover some of the Fairview Pharmacy things because I think a lot of the speakers will talk more broadly about some of the things that are happening in the broad Fairview organization. But each year, I feel like when myself or when John Pastor is kind of putting this slide together, it's always a challenge to try to capture everything. So I thought I'd get some of the highlights on the slide. One of the first things is just our continued growth. So in addition to just the normal growth that we see in all of our business units, we've had some truly new service lines or new businesses open. The first one I have on the slide is that we've opened 2 new pharmacies at Health East. And so as all of you know, roughly a year ago, we merged with Health East, and it's more than just the 2 pharmacies. So we opened 2 pharmacies, one at the St. Joe's and one at the St. John's campus, but it's much, much bigger than that with what's happened in pharmacy. We've really integrated kind of what the best of Health East and the best of Fairview Pharmacy and brought them together, and we're working to kind of disperse that across the full new combined organization. So our acute care teams, our medication therapy management teams, home infusion, specialty, all of those areas have been working together, in addition to the retail teams coming together and opening those 2 new sites. We also had exciting news just within the last couple of weeks. We opened our first home infusion branch outside of the Twin Cities. So just within the last couple of weeks, we opened a new branch in Duluth that will be servicing that market, and we also opened it there to be closer to our Range and Grand Itasca hospitals to provide them more local support. And in that facility, we've also got a couple of infusion chairs as well. So we've got an infusion center in that area as part of that growth as well. And then lastly, similar to the home infusion expansion, just within the last month or so, we've also registered with the FDA as a 503B outsourcer. So Integradose is our 503B outsourcer, recently registered. We're the first and only in Minnesota. And quite honestly, I think we're the first and only really in the upper Midwest that has chosen to make that registration. So we're excited about that and excited about how that can potentially help us inside of Fairview and maybe eventually outside of Fairview as well. And then secondly, I just wanted to talk about with our Accelera partner here in the room, and a number of our partners are here in the room, they've had significant growth as well. So the interest in the Accelera network and what we can do bringing health system specialty pharmacies together. And for those of you who don't know, Accelera is a network of just that. It's health system-owned specialty pharmacies coming together to work on best practices, data sharing, and all other things that we think we can collaborate on around specialty pharmacy. They've seen significant growth as well. Partners in Boston has joined, USC in Southern California, St. John Providence, and then we actually have a couple of Vanderbilt folks in the room today. Their membership is pending. We've signed a letter of intent with them to join the network as well. So the interest in Accelera continues to be strong, and we can. So the next question I think that I get asked a lot is why do we do this? Why does Fairview go through the kind of work and the energy to have this pharma symposium? As I mentioned earlier, we're 10 years in. I think we started, Tom, right, it was probably 30 people at the first one. I think I heard this morning we have over 300 at the event today. So really, why are we doing this? I think the first reason is you're one of our customers and one of our partners, right? I think we work with you in so many different ways, and one of our largest spends in the health system is on pharmaceuticals. One of the primary treatments for our patients in our health system are the pharmaceuticals that you bring to market. And so we definitely see see you as a customer, but we also see ourselves as being on the same team. We're trying to do the same thing. The missions of your companies, the mission of our company is really to make patients well, to treat patients, to cure patients. And we work on that together. And we think that ultimately it's together that we're going to be able to prove some of these outcomes, and we're going to truly be able to improve the care of our patients. And I think we also, with all of the talk around rising costs of drugs in the lay press and just broadly in healthcare, I think we also know that we need to work together with you to show the value of these drugs. That it's more than just the cost of them, but what is the value? What are we getting for, as when we use these medications, and what are we getting for that cost? And then I think lastly, it may seem simple, but it's because we choose to. We choose to partner with you. We know that a lot of health systems take a slightly different approach maybe to interacting with manufacturers and with pharma than what Fairview has traditionally taken. But it's something that each year and really each day we recommit ourselves to choosing to work with you and to partnering with you. And one of the ways that we do that is by our Piranha pool, or it used to be called Shark Tank competition. So again, for those of you in the room who don't know, each year we invite manufacturers to submit proposals of ways that they would like to partner with Fairview Pharmacy and with Fairview. And from that, we kind of take all those proposals, we narrow it down to 4 or 5. They actually come in and do presentations to us, and our agreement is that we agree to pick a minimum of one of those projects to move it forward for the year. And so I get to do another congratulations this morning, and I'm very happy to announce last year's winner of the Piranha Pool competition was Amgen. And so we actually had a meeting yesterday to go over some of the preliminary progress and results that we've seen, but the project really centered around, we were developing a mechanism to identify patients that are at risk of febrile neutropenia and then potentially decrease that incidence. So we're looking at different interventions, different things that we could potentially do to actually decrease the rates of febrile neutropenia. And I was going to say, Holly will talk about this a little bit later in her presentation, some of what we've done over the last year and what's worked. So as I mentioned, we continue to do the Piranha Pool. This year we had nearly 20 entries, so the interest in it continues to be strong. The proposals are getting better every year. I mean, I think it's, on the one hand, it's getting easier for us to narrow it down. On the flip side, it's getting harder for us to narrow it down because the proposals are so good. And this year we saw a little bit of a change, whereas in the past, a lot of the proposals were around some of the specialty areas. This year we actually saw a lot more in kind of the primary care, some broader population health type disease states. So our 4 finalists were in family planning, smoking cessation, we have a mental health program proposed, and then an asthma program as well. And so actually later this afternoon, we'll be listening to these presentations, and again this year we'll be choosing a minimum of one of these proposals to move forward with. Okay, so then finally I just wanted to do a quick review of the agenda and kind of where we're at and kind of how the day will go today. So we're going to start off with our president and CEO, James Hereford, will be coming up to talk about some overall healthcare trends and some innovations and how Fairview is responding to those and is leading the way with some of those innovations. Eric Nelson will be coming up to talk about our primary care transformation. Then we'll take a break. And this Traditionally, this has been kind of one of the favorite things of the symposium. We'll break. We'll have tables out in the lobby of the various business units of Fairview Pharmacy, and you'll have the opportunity to interact with those, with leaders from those areas, and to just mingle generally with others in the audience and the leaders from Fairview and Fairview Pharmacy. Then we'll come back from the break, and Jessica Cunningham will be talking about some of our population health strategies. Holly Budlong will be covering some of the kind of highlights of our outcomes work and our collaborations with you as pharmaceutical manufacturers. And then Debbie Simonson, one of our partners from Accelera, from Ochsner, is going to be doing a presentation around why kind of the integration of a health system pharmacy, or pharmacy within the health system, in particular specialty, is so important. And then I'll invite Tim Affeldt up to do a quick wrap up and to close the session. So we're going to move into our first speaker, and it is truly my honor to introduce our president and CEO, James Hereford. We feel very fortunate that he was able to join us this morning. So a little bit about James. He came to Fairview in 2016, and he brought with him an extensive experience in strategically guiding organizations, strengthening core operations, and driving cultural change. Before coming to Fairview, James served a number of roles. He was the Chief Operations Officer at Stanford Health. He was the Chief Operations Officer at Palo Alto Health Medical Foundation. And then he also held a series of leadership roles with Group Health. James also holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in mathematics, and he's actually shared some really interesting and funny stories with us about how that's worked in his career. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our president and CEO, James Hereford.